Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. The Obama administration going south fast. Can it save itself? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Headline right now, the IRS scandal could be worse than Benghazi as the president fires IRS Chief Stephen Miller. At this point, Mr. Obama had to do that.
I'll do everything in my power to make sure nothing like this happens again. By holding the responsible parties accountable, by putting in place new checks and new safeguards, and going forward by making sure that the law is applied as it should be, in a fair and impartial way.
The IRS, of course, admitting it targeted conservatives. But listen to this. Listen to this. Just hours earlier than what the president just said, Jay Carney was saying that the White House can't really explain how the IRS corruption happened because the FBI is investigating.
I cannot, obviously, comment on the investigation that the Attorney General announced the other day. What I can say is that the President believes that the conduct reported in the IG's review is inappropriate, it is wrong, and there needs to be consequences for that conduct.
All right, so Miller gets thrown out. But how many times are those guys going to use that ruse? That's what they said about Benghazi. An investigation is going to sort it all out. The terrorists would be brought to justice. Then nothing happens. So can't we get details about the IRS admittedly abusing its power because there's an investigation we can't know generally how that happened? Come on. The agency admits targeting conservatives, so please give us some indication of how that could possibly happen. It doesn't hinder the FBI. All this chaos is putting an enormous amount of pressure on the executive branch, as the president's not going to get anything done until he himself addresses the scandals in detail. Again, telling us how these things happen in order to guide the White House along. Here are some questions that President Obama should answer at tomorrow's press conference. Question 1, it's crucial. Who decided that Ambassador Susan Rice should go on 5 Sunday talk shows? As you know, I'm a simple man. It's a simple question. Who decided to send her out there? Here's a follow-up. Emails released today prove that CIA Deputy Director Mike Morrell signed off on Ambassador Rice's talking points, even though they were proven wrong. Why hasn't Mr. Morrell been ordered by you, Mr. President, to explain himself? It's been 8 months when his boss, David Petraeus, is on record as being uncomfortable with blaming the attack on a video. And why hasn't Morrell been fired like Miller? Second question. The U.S. had armed teams in Libya on the night Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans were killed by terrorists. Why didn't those teams help the ambassador? Very specifically, why didn't they help? Next question. When exactly, Mr. President, were you convinced the Benghazi attack was generated by organized terrorists and not by a spontaneous mob? 2 weeks after the attack on 9/11, you were still referencing an anti-Muslim video when you were told just days after the attack by your own national security people that al-Qaeda was most likely linked to the killing of the ambassador. Finally, why was it necessary to seize phone records from the Associated Press? Why? Again, simple question. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight reaction. With us, one of the stars at 5, Bob Beckel. So am I asking too much? President's going to have a press conference tomorrow. Shouldn't he answer each and every one of those questions?
I think he ought to answer a lot of those questions. I don't think he should answer the question about the AP because I think that's an ongoing national security issue.
Just general, though. Just general.
Is there a reason why they can't say why Susan Rice and who put Susan Rice on those talk shows? No, it ought to be answered.
All right, so that's one they should answer, okay.
And 2, what he did today with the IRS and by firing Miller is the first step, and it ought to be more substantive than that. We ought to find out why and why it was a Cincinnati officer doing this stuff. And I think more importantly than all of this is the abuse of the Internal Revenue Service on looking into conservative groups. That happened to me in the 70s. It happens now. It's just as
All right, so tomorrow he should, according to Bob Beckel, the president should be prepared to give us a little bit more why behind it. But Morrell, look at Morrell, second in command at CIA, still there.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why is he there? He should have been fired, correct?
Well, I mean, if
Come on, you want the second in command to be misleading the world?
If you believe that Petraeus, in fact, said in his when he looked.
That's what Petraeus says.
That's what Petraeus says. But again, Petraeus said that he was an honorable married man too. So.
No, he owned up to that. So I want to know why Morell's there, and that's a simple question. Why are you keeping Morell? If he misled everybody, and we know now because those things were released today, the emails were released after the factor demanded it. I hope you.
I'm sure that's exactly what it was.
So why is Morell there? And what about you, Mr. President? Don't you think that Barack Obama's in trouble now? Don't you think he's in trouble?
Well, I mean, if he doesn't know that, then I think he's a much more blind politician than I think he is.
But don't you think the people are starting to turn against him? He's losing a lot of credibility, not only with the folks, but with Congress. It's going to be harder for him to get his immigration bill passed, harder for him to get any legislation passed. Don't you think he's weakening now?
It's amazing to me that most modern second-term presidents get into scandals like this. It also is amazing to me how many of them come through it, like Bill Clinton, and I think Barack Obama will as well.
Okay, so you think that this is the firing of Miller, the IRS chief, tonight. This is the beginning of Barack Obama's comeback.
Yeah, I believe it. In time, the press will turn the other way. Yeah, well, if they do some substantive things and they answer some of these questions, I think the answer is yes.
All right, so you think the press, which is in love with the president, generally speaking, will take this as a sign that everything's going to go back to normal?
I think they were in love with him, and now they've turned against him, and as the presses want to do, they'll turn back the other way.
Why would they turn back the other way?
Because they are a mob mentality, and if somebody writes it first, they'll write it second.
No. Why would they turn back another way? If it were George W. Bush, they wouldn't turn back the other way.
Well, it's George W. Bush. It's not the same as Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a much better politician than George Bush was.
Is it just about politics, or is it about philosophy?
Look, most all of this is about politics. Bill, who are we kidding?
Philosophy, though, isn't it? A philosophy of governance?
Philosophy and politics have not necessarily crossed paths, at least in my lifetime in politics.
We're going to have more on how the press handles this tonight. But look, tomorrow is a very important press conference, President Obama.
Yes, it is.
And I think he's got to start to explain the how and why of these things, rather than just, okay, I'm firing a guy. That's easy, all right? Isn't that easy? I'm firing a guy. The IRS screwed up, firing a guy.
I think you better have some long meetings tonight before getting ready for this press conference.
All right. Now, generally speaking, are you disappointed with your guy, Beckel? Because you're a big Obama guy.
I am a big Obama guy, and I am disappointed, particularly about what happened with the IRS. It shouldn't have happened.
Not Benghazi?
No, Benghazi, I think, is a Republican effort to try to get Hillary Clinton. Oh, yeah. Oh,
you think it's a Republican effort to want to know why armed U.S. teams in Tripoli weren't sent to Benghazi?
The inference of that question is, did some of the administration let those people die because they were politics?
No, the inference is that there wasn't anyone in charge at the moment who made a correct decision.
That sounds like the Republicans on Capitol Hill investigated this thing 10 times. George Bush lost 9 people on his watch at embassies, and they had 1 committee.
Nothing this big, nothing even close to being
nothing this big. 9 dead people. There are 4 dead people.
A lot of that was in Iraq, as you know.
Well, yeah.
Now, listen, don't you think that the American people should know the answer to that very simple question? You had armed special forces in Tripoli. They were told to stand down and not go to Benghazi. Don't you think, just nonpartisan, we should know why that order was given?
We should know who gave the order, yes.
Okay. All right, so you're agreeing with me.
I agree with you on that.
Pretty much throughout the whole segment, you agree with everything.
No, I don't agree with everything you said, but that's all right. I agree with that part.
Would you say 80% you agree with?
I would say about 60, which is about 45% more than I normally do.
All right, Beckel, we'll see you tomorrow. President, a big press conference tomorrow. And all throughout this broadcast, we're going to update you on everything that happens. Next on the rundown is the Washington